Welcome to the Fit Girl Magic podcast. If you are ready to find your inner magic, develop great habits, and a rock steady mindset to feel confident, comfortable, and fit in your body, you are in the right place. I am Kim Barnes Jefferson, and I'll be giving you weekly doses of health, fitness, and life tips sprinkled with humor and real talk. If you're ready to be consistent without the stress of perfection, magic makers, it's time to slip into your favorite pair of PJs, grab some coffee, kick back, and listen to today's show. All right, I want to thank Miss Clara B. Lee from the Philippines. I've gone international, y'all. She leaves a great review here for me. She says so many valuable health tips that you can learn from. It is a must listen. Yes, yes, yes. Thank you so much. Again, I appreciate every single review that comes my way. It tells me that I'm giving you the information that you're looking for, the information that you're yearning for. I know that when I was in my, perimenopausal journey, I just was like, where can I turn to? What information can I find? And I'm grateful that I am giving that to you. These reviews mean the world to me. They light me up that I'm able to help you in any way possible. So if you are listening to this, do me a favor, head over to iTunes and leave me a review. If you're like, girl, I don't know how to do that, reach out to me. I will help you get that done. Have a great day and enjoy the rest of the show. All right, Magic Makers, today I'm going to do something a little bit different. I am doing a roundup, but I haven't done a roundup in a really long time. But this question that I get asked regularly, and I'm sure you think about it regularly, is something that I feel is more than just me speaking on it. And I really want you to get like a more well-rounded conversation. And, this is one of those kind of conversations that when I do hang out with my fitness friends and we start kind of, noodling about different things, this is the one that always seems to come up. This is the question that you might be asking yourself. You might have asked a trainer. You might have asked on Facebook. You might have asked whoever, how much muscle can a woman over 40 build in a year? And you probably ask this question because as you're going on these social media streets, you probably hear, women over 40, we need to put on muscle. Women over 40 need to lift heavy. Women over 40 need protein. And you're like, great, I'm doing all the things. However, how much can I really build? And, my background is I come from the fitness, figure, bikini competition world. And those women were attracted to building muscle. They were like, I want to put on so much freaking muscle. And, the hard part is that everybody is different, right? When I say, and I mean everybody personally, but every body, B-O-D-Y, is different. I have dieted over probably 500 women to get ready for something, be it a show, be it a photo shoot, be it life. And, I remember I'd sit at camp. And we would have a fitness camp twice a year, and we would sit at camp, and there'd be like 100 women, and they're all with aspirations to step on stage. And there would be some women that you would look at their body type and know that they could just walk past a weight of muscle, a rack of muscle, and boom, they would just the muscle would just jump on them. Then you would see other women that you would know they could stand in front of the same weight rack, they could lift the same amount of weight, and it's going to be years before that physique sees any type of muscle gain. So when the question gets asked, how much muscle can a woman put on a year? The question also becomes a little bit more nuanced. So it's like, are we looking for visible muscle, right? Are you looking to look like you are about to step on stage? Because that's a very different path than looking at, hey, I put on a pound of muscle. Because like I said, there are two types of, multiple types of women. But when it comes to your physique, some women really look muscular. And some women are like, I'm kicking my own ass at the gym and I don't look muscular, right? So those are the two types of nuances here. And, before I dive in, I've asked 5 different fitness pros for their opinion and asked the question. 1, how much muscle do you think a woman could put on in a year? And 2, what's one tip for someone who's looking to build muscle? All right, Magic Makers, this is the year that you get your goals, and we're going to do it in just 12 weeks. All right. Imagine if you and I sat down for just 1 hour and we mapped out your personalized 12-week plan, a plan that works for your life. No cookie cutter diets, no cookie cutter meal plans, no guessing if this is right, just clear, actionable steps for you to finally see results without stress or overwhelm. Here's what we can accomplish in just 1 hour. We will sit down and create realistic, meaningful health goals that align with your lifestyle. Break down your goals into bite-sized weekly action steps so you know exactly what to do step by step. We'll identify and tackle any possible roadblocks that might come up. Hello, social events and busy schedules. We'll create a plan that balances your workouts, your nutrition, and your mindset for sustainable success. This isn't just another to-do list. It's a personalized roadmap to help you get on your feet in just 12 weeks. So hurry up. Spots are limited. Head down into the show notes and book your call. It is only $99 from now until the end of the year. So book your 1 hour session today because guess what? 12 weeks is going to pass anyways. You might as well pass them doing something that's moving you towards your goals. If you have any questions about this, reach out to me, hello@KimBarnesJefferson.com, or shoot me a DM on the socials. But let's crush 12 weeks together. Now, let's just kind of step back and bust the number one myth that I get regularly. Oh yeah, I don't want to get bulky. Unless you have some type of genetic disorder that you are just coursing testosterone through your veins, it is impossible for women to get bulky, right? There are the rare outlier who does, pack the muscle on, but that is like that rare outlier. Now, people talk about toning. What you're talking about is having muscle tone. So in a sense, you are building muscle. Now, again, you can't get bulky. For those people who want visible muscle on their physique, that is a very different path. That path is very new. Well, all paths to muscle is nutrition, but the path to have visible muscle is you don't have a lot of wiggle room in your nutrition. That is very nutritionally driven. The second piece of that is you need to have a lot of reps under your belt, more like training age, right? How long have you been training? I've seen some women who just started training in the 40s. Some people who have been training since their 20s, they have more reps under their belt. So they may be able to get a little bit more muscularity. However, it is all nutrition dependent as well as hormonal dependent. And so those pieces, and when I asked the women, it wasn't about trying to sculpt and have this muscularity. It was literally like if you were to go and get your body done at a DEXA scan, and you had making this number up and you were at 10 pounds of muscle, we go 12 months in a day, let's say, and you got back on that same DEXA scan, could you be 2 pounds of muscles, 5 pounds of muscles heavier? That's what we are looking at. And with that said, when it comes to seeing how much muscle that you are putting on, I know that many of us want to, we have those, maybe you have that bioimpedance scale that does body weight and all the other fabulousness at your house, or maybe you have one of those like in-body scans at your gym. I want to say that building muscle isn't a week-to-week thing, like weight loss. Muscle gain is more like you're looking maybe once every 4 to 8 weeks to see muscle, because muscle just doesn't come on as fast as we want it to. Fat comes off faster than gaining muscle. So with that caveat, but also if you're someone who's getting like really serious about packing on the muscle, unless you have one of those water displacements that I can't think of off the top of my head what it is called. It'll pop up in my head later on. But there's a water displacement that is the true bod pod. That's what it is. It's a bod pod. Unless you're sitting in a bod pod, that is like the truest sense of, if you want to act the most accurate numbers. But the second most accurate number is called a DEXA scale scan, DEXA. Depending on where you live, they can run you about $50 to $100 a scan. And they started out with, I don't know if anyone has ever had like been scanned for osteoporosis. And basically you lay flat on a bed and like an arm comes across you, and it's like kind of like an old school like scanner, and it literally scans you from your head to your toes, and it can show you from, percent of muscle, percent of fat, how much your organs weigh. It really gets very granular. And for many people, I tell them like that's for most of us, that's the most accessible body scan we have. Your home scale, it does a good job. But if you're someone who's like, just like really getting serious about what is going on with my body composition, I would highly recommend the DEXA scan. Now, with that said, I asked these fitness pros because they've been in the game for a long time. And I know them, one, personally, but two, I also know they keep up with research. I also know that they are not the extremes. They are people who are like you. They know you live an everyday life. They know what it's like to work with a client who's got multiple kids, full-time job, dealing with aging parents, just dealing with just this thing called life. And the very first person I spoke with, I've known her for a really long time. She's like, "Oh, Kim, I don't know if I'm the person for you because it depends." And you know what? Everyone else was the same way. It depends. And honestly, it does depend because, everyone has a different history coming into building muscle, losing weight, dealing with being over 40, dealing with perimenopause. We all have that, training history. I mentioned before, it's like, are you new to lifting? Have you been lifting for a while? Because if you're new to lifting, you'll get some serious gains fast. But if you've been at it a while, progress is going to be looking at a glacier melt, right? You're going to be like staring at the wall, staring at it and staring at it, like, when is it going to happen? And that's totally normal. Nutrition, what does your food look like? And, sorry, ladies, many of you over 40, you undereat. And if I'm truly in a muscle building phase, the scale is going to go up. I've done a podcast on how to periodize your nutrition. But if you're looking for someone who's like, I want to gain serious muscle, you are probably doing something and you have been training for a long time. You're probably looking at about, I'm going to say 6 months that you are like heads down, just getting stuff done. All right. And then your hormones, they play a role. And so my very first guest here is Stacy Shadler. And again, I've known her for a really long time. And one of the things that I like the best about her is that she is a depends coach, right? And when you listen through what she has to say, she talks about how long are you training? What struggles do you have? And then she also gives you like just a little bit of nuance as to where she comes to from her answer. So have a listen to Stacy and I'll get right back to you.
Hey, Kim, it's Stacy. I'm here to answer your question. How much muscle do you think a woman over 40 could put on in 1 year? And what's one tip that you would give them to help support that muscle growth? So I'm an it depends kind of coach, but I'm going to keep it simple here. My answer is going to depend on this woman's training history. Is she going to get those newbie gains? What does her nutrition look like? Is she consistent with at least 3 days of total body strength training? If she is struggling for an extended period of time, can she get her hormones tested to see what's going on with testosterone, with estrogen, and with progesterone? And then just take her genetics into account. So I would say that on average, you could gain 3 to 5 pounds of muscle over the age of 40 in a year. My tip would be get that protein. Okay. So we need protein to build muscle. We need to make sure that we're eating enough. So I start my clients with 0.8 grams per pound of body weight. And then I gradually increase it. I don't rush right to 1 to 2 grams per pound of body weight because I want women to have a life. I want them to be happy. I want them to be pooping and have good digestion. I don't want to rush them right to that upper limit. So start with your protein, 3 square meals a day, getting 35 or more grams of protein in, and good luck. You got this.
So in here, Stacey calls herself out. She's like, it depends. And it all depends on what the background is. She talks about training history. She talks about being new to it. She talks about nutrition. And so as you are listening through this podcast, I want you to ask yourself those questions. Like, how long have you been truly training? Have you been dabbling in your training, or have you been like going to the gym, heads down, headphones in, and just getting after it? Same with nutrition. Have you been dabbling? Have you been pretty intense about your protein, or have you been like, oh, when I think about it, or I don't even know how to get more protein in? Those are kind of the questions that you start to listen. And the one thing she brought up that I always bring up to my clients, are you pooping? Because if we're not pooping, we're not getting good digestion. If we're not getting good digestion, we're not setting the stage, setting the foundation for building. Our bodies are doing other things versus saying, hey, let's shuttle some of this extra calories, this extra protein into our muscle. Next up, we have Eve Guzman. And I love her because she is very science-based when it comes to everything she does. She is the queen of macros. And she talks about, I love how she talked about like, hey, are you branding new? Then great. This is what's going to happen for you. And then second, she moves into year after year after year. So have a listen. And afterwards, I'd love to know, what year of strength training are you in?
Hi, my name is Eve Guzman, and I am the co-founder of Macro U, the Macro University. And when it comes to the question of how much muscle a woman could put on in 1 year, it's going to depend on a couple of things. It's going to depend on her diet and food preferences, how much protein she's eating, how often is she lifting, and then what her experience is as a lifter. If she is brand new to lifting and is making sure she is getting 0.8 to 1.0 grams of protein per pound in her diet every day, and is making sure she's getting complete sources of protein, whether she's a carnivore, pescatarian, or plant-based. In the very first year, she can build 12 pounds of muscle. In her second year, she can build 5 pounds of muscle. And year 3, about 2, maybe 3 pounds. And then year 4, maybe about a pound, which essentially give or taking error that might not be anything worth calculating at all. So it could range anywhere from 1 pound to 12 pounds in a year. But again, muscle protein synthesis from progressive strength training, making sure she's eating enough protein and making sure she's eating enough complete protein is something that will increase that rate of muscle growth.
I love how Eve breaks out and gives us a progression of year 1, year 2, and so forth. And for those of you guys who are, year 5 plus of lifting weights, or maybe you're someone like me who's like, I've been lifting for probably 15 plus years, the law of diminishing returns comes for us, which is a hard pill for many of us to swallow. I want you to think about it like this. If you're at an ice cream shop and the first time you had your favorite flavor of ice cream and you taste it and your body's like, OMG, all right? And then you decide to go for a second scoop and you're like, it's still good, but it doesn't light you up like it did. And then you go for the 4th or 5th time and you're like, it's good, right? That's the law of diminishing returns. The more you keep adding, the less you get out of it. So when it comes to muscle, you first start lifting weights and your body's like, oh, girl, this is good. Let's put it on muscle. This feels amazing. And then they grow really quickly. But after a while, your muscles get used to it. So we again have to lift heavier weights. We have to be in a bit more of a periodized program. And because our muscles are like, been there, done that. And so progress comes slower. And we have to work harder for smaller improvements, just like when we started adding in the scoops of ice cream. So the longer you lift, the harder it's going to be for you to keep building muscle at a fast pace. It doesn't stop growing. That's what I was saying. I'm just saying it's more time, more effort, and being smarter about getting those gains. Eve also talked about nutrition, and she talked about having complete protein sources. And so for those of you guys who are like, what is a complete protein source? There are 9 amino acids that make up a complete protein. And it's like doing Legos. And so in order for a protein to be complete, there needs to be 9 of those amino acids present. And mostly, if you are someone who eats meat-based, all, fish, eggs, so forth, already have all the pieces together. However, if you're someone who's more of a plant-based eater, you might need to combine some foods together to get the full, complete 9 pieces of the complete protein. Now, some of you are like, well, I use collagen. Here's the thing. Collagen is not a complete protein source. It is missing tryptophan. So if you're someone who's using collagen as your primary protein source, we want to make sure that we are eating other sources of protein to be able to get that complete protein source. And next up, you have my girl, Becky Sikanoski. And what I love about her, she brings in the importance of pre and post nutrition. And for many of you listening here, we grew up in the era of eat less, exercise more, right? We were never really told, or we were living off protein bars and protein shakes. So I love that she brings up this part. And also she talks about the types of workouts. And so have a listen. And I would love to hear, what was your old school thing you had to do for a workout?
Hi, this is Becky Sikanofi, and I'm the head coach at Live Healthy with Becky. And I'm a functional medicine nutritionist. I've been a personal trainer for 20 years. And I also specialize in trauma release. And I wanted to address the topic of how much muscle can women over 40 gain in about a year. I would say on average, if a woman, moderately does what she is supposed to do, I'd say around 5 pounds. However, if a woman is doing exactly what she should be doing, she could gain anywhere from 8 to 12 pounds in a year, upwards of even 15. And what's most important to achieve that goal is making sure that she's eating sufficient amounts of protein and a carbohydrate just before she works out, and then the same thing immediately after she works out. That's probably my number one nutrition tip that's going to help women over 40 gain muscle and get the most bang for their buck in the gym. I also want to add that women over 40 love boot camp classes, and they may feel good, but typically they're doing you no favors because they're shooting your cortisol through the roof, which is effectively blocking fat loss and muscle gain. And it just kind of wears you out and leaves you feeling kind of waterlogged. So ladies, I would skip the boot camp classes and I would focus on rest-based weight training, where you lift a weight heavy for about 12 reps. You rest for a minimum of 30 seconds and you repeat that 3 to 4 more times. Those are my top tips.
What I love about Becky, as I mentioned, she brings in the pre and post nutrition, that carbs are just as important as the protein. I remember when I first started working out and getting ready for my first show, I felt that if I didn't have my protein shake, the moment I dropped my last set of weights, I thought my muscles were just going to wither into the ether. You have a good, probably about 30 minutes after your workout to get in some protein. And that protein, you want it to be like a fast acting protein. So something that isn't you're not having a chicken breast or something, something that's fast acting. So it could be something like a yogurt. It could be that protein shake, liquid egg whites, something that's really easy for your body to digest. When it comes to carbohydrates, you want something that's pretty, again, easy for your body to digest. So it could be a banana, it could be an orange, it could be just something that a fruit that doesn't require your body to churn through a lot of fiber. And when it comes to fruit and all that other stuff, so many people think there's something wrong with having a banana. Have the banana. It is fruit. It is a naturally occurring sugar. It's not like you're taking the banana and dipping it into, granular sugar. That is, if you're doing that, stop, but you can have the banana. The other thing that I want to talk about is those women who think going to the gym without food in their stomach. I know they're oh, it doesn't feel so good. I'm not asking you to have a whole damn meal. I'm asking you to do something really simple. It could be just having a half a banana. It could be my now go-tos are those apple those applesauce packets. I love them because I can just they don't require refrigeration. I keep them in my gym bag and I can eat them on the way to the gym. It takes me about 10 minutes to drive to the gym. I can eat them on my way to the gym. But I want us as we're over 40 to break free of these fasted workouts. Our hormones don't like them. And so if you're struggling with that, please let me know. The second thing that I like that she brought up is that so many of us grew up in the era of no pain, no gain, that if I wasn't dying after my workout, it didn't count. And I was that person. If I didn't work out for 2 hours, my workout didn't count. If I wasn't sweating on that Stairmaster, why was I even on the Stairmaster? And so I want us to start to kind of really take a look back at our workouts and saying, am I going to the gym and am I seeing any results? And if I am not seeing any results, 2 things I have to ask myself. Is that workout working for me? And what does my nutrition look like? And that was sort of 2 questions we step back, right? It's not I didn't go hard enough. I needed to lift hard enough. It's is it the right workout for me? Maybe we've evolved. Maybe you've been doing the same workout that, a trainer gave you in 2010 and you have not changed. And you haven't changed up the workouts, you haven't upped your weights. Maybe that's the case. Maybe you've been stuck at that boot camp, but you haven't really changed too much about that. Or you haven't even asked the head of the boot camp, how do you mix things up and so forth. Or maybe you've been following a diet since 2010 and it's leaving you hungry. You're low energy and you're craving like a mofo. So here's where we kind of have to ask ourselves smarter questions versus I'm doing all the things, but how do you feel? All right. How do you feel? Everything is very nuanced. And yes, everything does depend. All right. On to the next guest.
Hello, my name is Marisa May. I'm a health and lifestyle coach, and I focus on helping clients build and maintain a sustainable lifestyle. So Kim asked me how much muscle I think a woman over 40 could realistically put on within a year. And I think that answer isn't super straightforward because I think a lot of people don't measure their lean muscle mass. So I think it's hard to quantify necessarily how much muscle someone can put on, but I will say it is possible to put on enough muscle to change your physique enough to see a noticeable difference within a year. So what that number is, hard to say, and also depends on obviously so many factors on where someone is starting within the process. But I will say to build more muscle, the single thing, it's kind of 2 things, but the one thing I'm going to wrap it into that I think most people need to do or do a better job of is following a structured strength training program with progressive overload built into it. And if you don't know what that means, that's okay. There's lots of coaches and trainers who know exactly what that means and who'd be happy to help you through that. And I think that following a structured program and lifting heavier weights than you likely are is the key to building muscle mass. And if you did that consistently over a year, you would see a big difference within 365 days.
And the beauty when you ask 5 different people, we get 5 different answers, which I absolutely love because they all have come at it from a different angle, from a different area of their expertise. And here, Marisa, I really loved what she had to say. She was like, you know what? Most people don't really accurately measure their lean muscle mass. And that is true. And we measure it too often. We're like, nothing's happening. Right. And I feel that for you. And so the thing that I love of what she said is that we have to follow a structured program. And I feel that, I am a group exercise instructor and I know why you go to group exercise. I get that. It's you don't want to do it on your own. You need someone to stand in front of you and say, do X, do Y, do Z. I get that. But I also know that in those structured programs, you can ask for support from the coach, from the instructor to say, how am I going to get the most out of this class? And what Marisa is saying is that with a structured program, lifting heavier weights than you probably are. And as a group exercise instructor, I see it all the time. People who come to my class regularly and they go and they reach for the same 12-pound weights or the same 15-pound weights. And so what I ask you is, when was the last time you picked up something heavier? Now, are you picking up something heavier every single workout? No. But if I've been doing the same exercise for 3 to 4 weeks, ask myself, could I lift heavier? And when it comes to lifting heavier, maybe you're doing 12 reps. maybe I don't get all the way to the 12 reps with the heavier weights, but maybe I can get to 6 reps with that heavier weight, and then I will pick up the lighter weight, right? The key here is that I want to have good form, right? I want to lift heavy, but I want to have good form. I don't want to sacrifice form to bump up the weight. That's 1. 2, ask myself, again, when was the last time I lifted heavy weights? 2, if I am doing 12 reps, am I easily like blowing through those 12 reps? Or when I get to rep 10, 11, or 12, does it feel a little bit of a challenge, right? Or maybe we're doing something that we might have a 13th reps in us, but it would be a little ugly. So those are the questions that we ask ourselves. But if I can't get all the way through 12, it's okay. Maybe I get through 4 with the heavier weight, and then I drop down back to a different weight. But we're testing ourselves to see how we can start to get those heavier weights into our program. But again, as she mentioned, doing this consistently over a year, you're going to see some gains. You might see, depending on the weight, you might see a 5 to 15 pound difference in the weight that you started lifting. I'm talking lifting weight, not body weight. Lifting weight, you might see that. And that right there might be the motivation that you need. Back in the day, I was this old school, hardcore gym rat. And I used to have a notebook that I would write down all my workouts in, and I would write down the date and the weight I lifted, and just to be able to see the progression. And I still have those. And that was like my motivation. That's what got me through the workout. And so nowadays, maybe it's on an app, maybe, I don't know, but that might be the motivation you need to kind of keep yourself going. And rounding out our muscle roundup, we have Adele, and not the Adele. That'd be fabulous, right? We have Adele. What I love about her, what she brings to the party, she talks about maintenance. And many of us don't even know what maintenance is. And I know I struggled with maintenance for a really long time before I actually found it for myself. So have a listen. And I would love to know, do you struggle with maintenance, or have you ever even thought about getting to maintenance?
My name is Adele, and I am a health and fitness coach for women 40 and over. So when it comes to building muscle, we can build muscle into our 80s. So ladies, it's not too late. Looking more short term, it is possible to put on 6 to 12 pounds of muscle over the course of the year at a rate of about 0.5 to 1 pound of muscle each month. This is, of course, with the correct combination of diet, exercise, and staying consistent. My top tips when it comes to building muscle are lifting weights that feel challenging and pushing yourself in the rep range you are doing. You don't have to lift until failure, but close to it. And volume intensity are also very important when it comes to building muscle. Now, when it comes to nutrition, protein intake is especially important, consuming about 0.8 grams of protein per pound of body weight. So if you weigh 150 pounds, that would be about 120 grams of protein per day. It's also important that women are eating enough calories in general. Otherwise, it will be really hard to build muscle. Sometimes when it comes to body composition goals, women tend to undereat, thinking it will help them see progress quicker. But when it comes to building muscle, we need to be eating at least in maintenance calories or in a slight caloric surplus to build, even if it's just temporary. And most importantly, stay consistent. Stay the course. Even if you feel like you're not seeing the progress you want right away, building muscle takes time. And if you plan to be working out anyways and focusing on your health, so what if it takes a while?
Again, Adele came in and she talked about it depends, right? So she was like, it's anywhere from 6 to 12 pounds, depending on what your nutrition and what your training looks like. And so her top tip is that if we are looking to change our body composition, we need to eat more. And we want to be in either at maintenance calories or slightly at a caloric surplus, even if it's temporary. And I, alluded to that earlier in the podcast that, I remember when I was coaching primarily girls to do fitness and figure competitions. One of my old clients, Katie, she stepped on stage and she looked like, compared to the other girls, she had muscle, but she looked like olive oil compared to the other girls on the stage. And I remember looking at her and she was disappointed. And I was like, all right, Katie, I'm like, let's use this as a learning opportunity. And I said, Katie, I said, are you willing to give me 1 year? And so the show was in November. I said, Katie, are you willing from now until October to just go heads down and lift like a mofo? And she said, yes. And literally we sat for for probably a good 9 months. All we did, I fed her. I stuffed her. And with good foods, healthy, clean foods, I stuffed her. And then I slowly took food away from her, got her on stage, and she placed 5th. And so I'm not saying you listening here want to be a, figure curl. But what I'm saying is that in order for her to put on muscle, and she was a leaner girl, in order for her to put on the muscle that we needed for her to put on, we had to feed her. We had to stuff her. And the biggest challenge that I see for women over 40 is that they don't want that scale to change. 1 or 2 pounds, that scale goes up and they freak the fuck out. And so I want you to ask yourself, if you are truly committed to a muscle build, I want you to pick a season, and I've done a whole podcast and I'll link it here. Pick a season that you're like, I can go heads down for 3 to 6 months and I'm going to not even get anywhere near that scale. And I'm just going to focus on eating and building muscle and seeing what happens. Because trust me, you will be so surprised what happens because muscle building takes time. Okay. It takes time. And if we plan it out, we plan out our year. And that's, all the coaches that I just have, brought into this podcast. If you sat down with them and said, hey, Adele, Eve, Stacy, Becky, Marissa, I want to build muscle. They'd be like, okay, let's put together a plan that is like 6 months, 9 months long so that we can really get you the biggest bang for your buck. And it isn't this 12 weeks to whatever, it is more like a 6+ month commitment to building it. And, the biggest truth bomb is that building muscle isn't an overnight success story. If you're serious about adding muscle over 40, you're signing up for at least a year of consistent training, focused nutrition, and more importantly, patience. I get it. I have the patience of a gnat. And this past year, I've been doing a lot of patience building on some things I'm working on. And trust me, sometimes the path seems like it is just so freaking murky. But here's where we have to ask ourselves, are we willing to trust the process and stay the course and let time do its thing? Versus the best way I like to see it is like if you've ever baked a cake, all right? And the cake is supposed to cook for, let's say, 40 minutes. Are you opening the oven every minute or two and being like, is it starting to rise? Is it risen? What's going on? And that's where I think so many of us get caught in that when we're building muscle or even losing weight. Like every 5 minutes, we're like, the scale didn't change. This didn't happen. That didn't happen. I don't see the muscle. My pants don't fit. My pants fit. Like you go back and forth. And so here's the biggest takeaway is that if you are looking to build muscle, especially over 40, especially if you've been seriously training for decades, we got to put our heads down and commit to showing up to do your workouts. Fuel your body like you mean it. Sleep, manage your stress, and finally stop trying to rush to the result. I see it all over these social media streets. How do I do something in 6 weeks? I'm going on vacation. How do I do something in six months? I'm bored. I'm patient. But no, we got to stop rushing to the results because muscle building is a slow burn, but the payoff, is so worth it. You will see your calories at rest increase. And that's what we're looking for. Like, how do I burn more calories without having to work my booty off? Because we're trying to build the booty. All right. So if you love this episode, please share it with a friend who is looking to up their fitness goals in the most realistic, non-extreme way. And hey, don't forget to subscribe for the most straight talk of fitness and health for living your best life over 40. And do me a favor. I've linked everybody that I talked to for this podcast. Head over, give them a follow. They have some great information. I ask them because I know that they are not going to lead you astray. I don't trust my people with that many people, and they are people that I wholeheartedly trust that everything that they're sharing is not going to lead you down the extreme rabbit hole. They know their stuff and they are spot on when it comes to helping women live their best life without going to the extremes. All right, Magic Makers, love you so much. Thank you so much for listening to the show. And I will talk to you next week.
thank you for listening to the Fit Girl Magic podcast. If you've made it this far, yay. I'm thinking you enjoyed the show. Let's continue the conversation on Instagram. You can find me at Kim Jefferson Coach. In order for me to keep sharing this message, do me a favor and leave me a 5-star review on iTunes. While you're there, don't forget to subscribe so that you won't miss an episode. New episodes are available every Wednesday. The Fit Girl Magic podcast is intended to provide you with tips, tools, and strategies that will help you make better decisions about your health. I really appreciate your feedback and your support. Thank you so much.